All the stuff is
That's what everybody who falsely accuses the police say. That's what
Ready
everybody
when you are,
who falsely
okay.
accuses the police say.
I'd like to call the town meeting to order, the Special Water Pollution Control Authority and regular town council meeting of North Branford, Connecticut for September 15th at 7:05 PM. I'll read the notice first. In accordance with Governor Lamont's Executive Order 7B regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, this meeting will be held remotely and with in-person attendance limited to 25 people per state guidelines. All attendees must follow social distancing guidelines and wear masks. Okay, let's start off with the salute to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That's right, Walt's.
Mike, I think we have Walt on Zoom.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so do roll call.
Mayor Vignone is absent. Deputy Mayor Zampano.
Here.
Counselor Angeloni.
Here.
Counselor Diamond.
Here.
Counselor Duty.
Here.
Counselor Fawnin.
Here.
Counselor Gold.
Here.
Counselor Paternoster.
Here.
And Counselor Palicia.
Here.
All right. A motion to accept previous minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Did you get that, Michelle?
I did. Thank you.
Any discussion, corrections? A vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, so we'll move into the Water Pollution Control Authority agenda. Just a note, at 7:30, we have a public hearing or thereabouts. Sewer works budget and proposed sewer use fees for 2020 to 2021 fiscal year. Any correspondence or citizen statements? None. Unfinished business? None. New business? Fiscal year 2020, 2021 sewer works operational fund budget, capital budget, and user fee.
Well, that, we all have to wait until after
Oh,
the public hearing.
sorry.
So we have to go to B.
Yeah, thank you. White Hollow sewer deferred payment.
Good evening. This is an annual item on the agenda. When the White House sewers were put in and assessed back in about 94, 95, there were provisions that, because of the size of the assessment, they could, if people met income guidelines, they could defer the assessment. Again, only defer it. Eventually, when the property sells, we'll have, the assessment will be paid up. There were initially about 15 to 20 properties that qualified for this. There's one remaining property at 52 Blue Trail Drive. And they requested a sewer deferral for this year. There is a suggested motion in your packet and some background information for the town assessor.
How much longer does that bond go on? It's 25 years.
It's been about 25 years that they've been under there. And that, again, there's only one left.
Well, when you say one left, does that mean everybody else is paid off? their
Everybody
bond?
else paid off. There were about 15 people that were under that deferral program.
Yeah.
Initially, property sold, and they paid off the assessment at that point.
So this one deferral is the only
It's
one that's
the only one
remaining
left.
owing bond money.
That's correct.
A motion to approve the sewer deferral payment for the following address, 52 Blue Trail Drive in Northford.
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
Okay, we'll go to item C, 224 Foxen Road. Map 22, Lot 1, request to connect 3 recreational vehicle park sites to sanitary sewers in Totucket Road.
This concerns property and regulation that we discussed numerous times in the past, the overall concept, and recently the WBCA amended their sewer assessment regulations to define the number of units to be assessed for a recreational vehicle parking site in the regulations. That was recently done. This is the actual application from the property owner to connect 3 recreational vehicles park sites to the sanitary sewers at Tucket Road. The owner of the property actually installed the sewers in Tucket Road about 3 years ago to service a commercial development that they did on Tucket Road. At that time, there were provisions for future connections, subject to WPCA approval. They granted a 2-inch line and a parallel 3-inch line. What they're looking to do at this point is to connect to the 2-inch line, which the property at 190 Tucket Road connects into as well, just for these 3 units. Basically, it's a baby step in terms of the park. Their ultimate plan is eventually to come back before the WPCA sometime in the future and connect more of the recreational vehicle sites and ultimately the mobile home units to sanitary sewers. That's somewhere down the road, I don't know where that is. So what they're asking for at this point is to connect the 3 recreational vehicle sites to the sanitary sewers at Tucket Road. There is a suggested motion for that, and there's a number of conditions. Just to highlight a few of them, they're required to pay a special connection fee of $12,300 because each of the parking spots is charged a third of a connection unit, so it's a total of 1 unit for the 3 sites. Then you have to just provide final details and sizing of the actual pump itself, which they would get from the manufacturer, provided by office, and a few other sanitary sewer details, just to make sure everything's in accordance with the regulations. That we would require an as-built drawing of the sanitary sewer connection to 3 units records upon completion, and that any connection of any other facilities on the said property will be prohibited unless expressly approved by subsequent action from the WPCA. So again, there's approval for the 3 units. Anything in the future, they'd have to come back. There is a site plan. I know it's been reduced quite a bit by the time it's on this 8.5 by 11 page. But basically, there's the 3 sites are shaded in. They look like a hat. There's 3 of them over there closer to Tucket Road. They have a line that goes out to the existing sanitary sewer into Tucket Road. Any questions? I'll try to answer them. But again, there is a suggested motion for consideration.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the suggested motion as presented, which is on page 31 of our packet. I'm not going to read the whole thing because I know Michelle has a copy of it.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you.
Any citizen statements, Mike?
Let me check. No emails.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go into, we'll keep going, right?
Yeah,
Go
we'll go
into
right
the
into
regular town meeting.
Just a phone call, excuse me, I don't normally come to these meetings.
Yeah.
But I did put in a phone call for Mike about the cell tower.
Okay, I think that's on the next, isn't that on the next?
But, I mean, if you're here to speak.
Okay,
this
that's
would-
fine.
Yeah, she's unfamiliar with the
the
But that's
citizen-
water pollution control,
But that's citizen statements for water pollution
yeah.
control,
So
not,
yeah.
not the regular meeting.
So not yet?
Not
Yeah,
yet.
in the next section,
Okay.
yes, sorry.
There's copies of the agenda right
I-
Okay.
So we'll go into the reports of committees, boards, and commissions. Economic development.
EDC met last night. There's a copy of Roger's minutes in here, or things that happened in EDC. The last thing, one of the big things is they have brought up the discussion again for potential use of 1599 Foxton Road. So they are in the process of getting some ideas together and how it relates to the plan of conservation and development. One of the biggest things is, before they go further to discuss possible options and whatever else, they're really looking for the town to do a survey, an A2 survey of the site, which is a cost of approximately $5,000 to $6,000, which would be needed in order to do anything if we were gonna sell it or whatever the use is. It would be a good idea to know exactly the parameters of the land, the outlines and everything. So that's one of the biggest things in regards to 1599. And then the rest is, you can just read it in there as far as what they've been going through and stuff. So,
Parks and Rec,
there was no meeting since our last one.
Police Commission.
Police Commission met last night. It was kind of a memorable meeting in the beginning. We had the retirement of Sergeant Madul, the promotion of Officer Brown to Sergeant, and we got to meet the new recruit, the K-9, whose name is Chance. He's really a beautiful dog. It was really great to see him, and they have to go through, it's amazing, 15 weeks of training for that.
Who's this handler?
Cosenza?
There was quite a bit of discussion,
Cosenza.
I'm sorry,
Who's this handler? Who's gonna handle him?
I can't remember which officer.
Cosenza, I believe. There was a notice that was put out by the police department today.
There was quite a bit of discussion about the new police accountability law. In order to be, you have to become, as a department, CLIA certified by the end of 2024. It takes about 5 years for a police department to prepare to become CLIA certified. The Police Commission would like to begin now, and they would like to hire the Daigle Law Group, which is a sole provider at this time to help departments get CLIA certified. That is a cost of $20,000. So the Police Commission is looking at either a budget transfer from the pension fund and the current budget, or perhaps the town council could allow them to take it out of the surplus funds from last year's budget. They're looking for direction. I think what it'll be on the agenda of the next town council meeting, but it's something that they wanna do. They feel they're already a year behind, and there's a lot of work to do, and they don't wanna take one officer who has, that's what they would have to do, take one officer out of commission and work on that basically all the time. It's quite a task, and again, it's because of that new accountability law. The police department spent over $7,000 in the last couple of months between the recent storms and extra patrols with the opening of school. So that's already given them a setback for this year in their current budget. That's why they're looking for some direction from the town council, and it will hopefully be on the next council agenda to discuss that particular topic.
Thank you. Fire Commission.
I was away, so I wasn't able to attend.
Okay. For Board of Education and Town Council Communications Subcommittee.
No meeting.
Okay. Planning and Zoning, I did not attend. I'm sorry, that's Town Planning Goals Subcommittee.
No meeting,
No meeting, okay. Planning and Zoning, I did not attend. North Branford Police Department Facility and Town Center Advisory Committee.
No recent meeting.
But is there something, what's this application referral notification under planning and zoning?
Yes, just added that in as a sort of, rather than under communications, just notification that Carrie had put forward. And I wasn't sure if it would be reported out of P&Z or not, but it's just an item of information about what they're pursuing with respect to the moratorium on marijuana.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Finance Subcommittee?
There was no meeting.
Ad hoc Design Review Committee?
The ad hoc committee met on September 9th with the superintendent and the architect. The ad hoc committee had developed a series of questions, and we had quite a discussion about it. I think that the ad hoc committee made it very clear to the architect and the superintendent that the original site proposed for a possible new building is not acceptable. I think Al Rose made that pretty clear during the course of the meeting. Franny is going to meet with the architectural firm and show him and what he's suggesting on the other side of the building, actually where the teacher's parking lot is. So I think before we meet with them again, and we're meeting on the 24th, hopefully they're gonna go out there and look at that particular site and talk about the potential of that site. But I think it's been pretty clear that the site that originally was proposed by the architect isn't gonna fly. Okay.
Thank you. All right, time we got, so that time. Town Manager's Report?
Sure. Item A is the update on COVID, and you have a report as prepared and submitted by the East Shore District Health Department. Again, we're holding steady, but I do have to caution that and let the council know that although our numbers are flat and they appear good news with respect to blunting the curve, so to speak, there are a few cases that are being monitored. There are a few issues that may have a potential of flaring up. And, we just have to wait and see what the results of those particular cases are. But I'm told that they're around us in terms of the geographical area. Additional flare-ups that are, again, because we're in a regional health department, are giving us, pause for concern. But until we see the data, we really, we're just speculating. So the numbers are the numbers at this point. I'm hoping to get an updated report on our weekly command meetings that we have with Health Department on Thursday mornings. So if that changes, and it probably will, I'll issue an email for the council, let you know what's going on. But right now, we're doing all the right things in terms of spacing and distancing that helps show in the numbers that we're reporting right now. We hope that we are hoping that we'll have some movement on testing and additional testing. We had talked with reaching out with various organizations to try and get some of these mobile pop-up type of events that can do testing, but that hasn't panned out yet. What we do have scheduled is a mask giveaway for Saturday at the high school, 10 to 1. So we're getting a lot of calls on that, and I think the press is out on that, and they'll continue to get the word out for Saturday.
Town Hall, is that open and fully staffed?
Yeah, well, we're open as of Monday, and we do have people coming in, doing our best to track and monitor that situation. But yes, our offices are open with the exception of, well, we are all open, but open to the public with the exception of the clerk's office, as you know from Lisa's report, under a lot of pressure in order to get the absentee ballot process underway. So there are trying to do it by appointment. They're just the two of them in there, and they've got a daunting task ahead of them with ballot processing. So they're doing what they can. We're trying and doing what we can to assist them and do the best we can. But we're open, yes.
Fully staffed?
Well, we are staffed, yes. In terms of offices, there are still individuals that are working on a modified schedule and some remote work. Given their situations, but otherwise the offices are open and we are fully functional.
Move on to B.
Storm cleanup still underway. spoke with Fran not too long ago. I think they've got bogged down in the Williams Road area today, but they're still making progress getting through the heavily impacted areas. There are significant trees down and debris and brush, but that is ongoing, and I think they're making great headway.
C, public safety communications report.
Yeah, I just, to that is basically about talking about the consultant that was hired for the town-wide public safety communications system. We had a meeting with the consultant, Paul Zito. He is proceeding with that report, which we hope to have another meeting with him for the end of the month in what we hope will be a presentation to the council for October 20th. Unless the report comes in earlier than expected, then potentially we could make the 6th, but I think the target date would be October 20th to have him come before the council and report on that. So
Mike, I have a question. Part of that whole communication remedy is the need to put some communication equipment on Oshakowski's tower, and I guess the question is, when is that agreement going to be available? Because it's holding up the police department to do some of the work they want to do as part of this communication.
yeah, I'm speaking with Joe. I had the message I had that he'd be coming in, sending me something shortly, so I'm hoping it's this week, and I've been going back and forth with him, and I hope to have something, and again, this week is optimistically, hopefully.
I hope so, because that came up at the meeting, that, they're being held up because that agreement hasn't been signed.
Is that public safety communications, Mike, does that have to do with the radios and both all the departments, public works, fire,
Yep.
and
Comprehensive,
and
yeah.
police? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll have a bearing for the council, obviously, in terms of capital projects, like, in terms of the police department going forward. This is a big ticket item that likelihood is going to need to be bonded, and will tie in to the new facility. So I think it's important to keep this on track, and I think that Paul will be ready for October.
Okay. Community events and presentations, any? None?
None.
Citizen statements?
Ma'am, did you want to speak? This would be an opportunity for you to speak now, if you would like.
My name is Mary Ann Flood. I live at 257 Clintonville Road in Northford. And a few weeks ago, I heard people in the woods laughing. I didn't know what they were doing. I didn't go in there. But a couple of days ago, I got a map, and to me, it looks like you people are thinking about putting a cell tower in my backyard. So I have a problem with that. I worked for the phone company 49 and a half years. I know these cell towers throw off radiation, and radiation is a huge problem for people. Now, I know the phone companies are gonna say, oh no, it's not gonna affect you, but there are doctors, and I referred it to Mike, an article to read, that are saying, don't listen to them. Do not listen to them. There might not be any evidence that it can create cancer in people, but why take the chance of putting it near a school where you have kids? I've been in my house for 43 years. I was told when I bought my house, it's hard to breathe, by Norman Gavin, that the property behind my house was given to the town, and they wouldn't build or do anything with it for 100 years. Now you're contemplating putting a cell tower where I live, We have Montgomery Village with all old people there that probably already have
Excuse me.
pre-existing illnesses. There's probably plenty of places in town that you could put it in an industrial area rather than where people live. And I have a huge problem, and I want to know, it looks like you're going to come off of Route 22. Is that between my house and Art Hausman's house? I don't know. I can't read this map too well.
No,
It's not coming off of 22?
no.
Proposed
No.
the proposed driveway.
It doesn't show. Where's the school?
Proposed access road, this right here, and so here's the school, Stanley. And so the proposed access road would come here along the bottom here.
So it's closer to Montgomery Village?
Yes, it is.
Well, that's a.
And well, I'm right near Montgomery Village. I'm in the house.
Well, I'm one of the old people that lives in Montgomery.
Well, you didn't have
And
to.
I live, and if I walk through the woods.
Clearly with a pre-existing condition.
And
I have a
also I've been told that the utilities are gonna be brought in from Route 22. It's not just the access road.
Yeah, so I'm asking you, please do not even consider that location. I have a pre-existing condition, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if I get cancer, you people are gonna be the first people I come to with my attorney, because it's just not right. And I will be getting a petition from the entire town of Northford, because our kids go to that school. My kids are older, but their kids go to that school. We have to think about people's lives. These phone companies don't care about, I have a cell phone, it works fine from my house. When I'm driving down Route 7 Middletown Avenue, I don't get cut off. When I go down 22, there is one spot that I might get cut off, but it's for a couple of seconds, so who cares? It's not worth people's lives to put a cell tower there. So I ask you, please take that into consideration. I know you're looking at several other sites. Move it to another site where there's no people. And when are you thinking about making a decision?
We're still gathering information, so there's,
Yeah, well, for me to find this on my door and not to know anything about it, whoever put it on my door, I'm thankful to. But I have a problem, 43 years in the town, you're considering cell towers, and if somebody didn't put this on my door, I never would have known. Have a problem with that. Everybody in that area should have been sent a letter that you're considering it, even if you're not sure that you're gonna do it. Because I'm sure that once I start spreading the word, and please spread it in Montgomery Village, because I was thinking about going there, people should be aware of this. This is not a joke. It's definitely not a joke. So, that's all I really have to say. But if it's near Montgomery Village, it's near my house.
What number?
257.
257.
But I'm in the back. I'm in back of the Blue Raised Ranch. So I could hear people at Montgomery, you know, if they're outside. But these people, and I don't know if you guys were there, I don't find the laughter, I don't find anything funny about this. So now that I know why those people were in the woods, which is very unusual, and the kids, my kids played in the woods. They built forts in the woods. They played in the woods for years, and I'm sure there's other people's young kids that are playing in the woods. It's too dangerous, too dangerous. For what? For 10 seconds that you might lose a signal? Doesn't make sense to me at all, at all.
Thank you.
That's all I can say, and I
Thank
hope
you.
you really take, and I know you will, but I hope you really take it into consideration. Because phone companies are gonna say, oh no, there's no proof Well, there's no proof that it doesn't cause cancer. And when you go for a test, you go for, what do you call it?
Body scan.
A body, yes. They cover you up. Why? Because of radiation. They say cell phones aren't good. That's why I use my speaker. I don't put it up to my ear. Because it's all radiation. So, that's all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
So we'll move to the public hearing.
I think we have to read the notice. We have to read the notice. So the legal notice of the public hearing for the sewer use charge, the North Branford Water Pollution Control Authority pursuant to section 7-255 of the Connecticut General Statutes will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, September 15th, 2020 at 7:30 PM at the Town Hall, Town Council Chambers, 909 Foxton Road, North Branford, for the purpose of establishing a proposed sewer user fee for the 2021 fiscal year. The proposed charge is $480 per unit, and a copy of the proposed charges is on file in the town clerk's office and is available for inspection by the public. Dated in North Branford, Connecticut, this third date of September 2020, WPCA Authority, Town of North Branford.
Good evening. If I could just briefly walk you through the proposed budget, just go over some of the highlights of it. Included in the packet is a number sheets from the Excel spreadsheet. The first sheet basically covers anticipated revenues, total expenditures, and it comes down a starting and an ending fund balance. Not so much of what we come down to, but I'm gonna just jump ahead and then come back to that. But the next sheet pretty much walks through expenditures. And in reality, there's not a whole lot of difference between 2019-20 expenditures and 2020-21 expenditures. There's some tweaks, little differences, between items. But the majority of the cost of the budget are two items. Number 318, intermunicipal costs. We don't have a treatment facility in town. We discharge to Greater New Haven WPCA, the North Haven WPCA, and the Branford WPCA. They receive our flows and they treat them and they send us a bill for them. In terms of intermunicipal costs, what happened, and the detail is on the following page. Let me hit the highlights. We have a dry year, our flows go down a little bit, as do theirs, but our percentage of flow pretty much has been consistent, pretty much year after year. So our flow may go down, but the cost of treating it goes up from those municipalities, because they have the same, the only real variable they have in terms of operating costs are the, maybe electrical costs, pumping, and some chemical costs. But, the basic cost of operation stays the same. And it pretty much tracks through for us that we're pretty consistent. We went from $1,038,000 for total intermunicipal costs last year to about $1,020,000. Slight variation, went down a little bit, which is always a good thing, but pretty consistent. The other bigger item in there is other contractual, which is our service provider, Veolia Water. They're under contract for us. They have the manpower and the equipment that operates our sewer system, flushes our line, takes care of our pumping stations, makes repairs and upgrades as needed. And it's a very good service. So those are the bigger items, two biggest items in there. And again, like I said, we're pretty consistent year to year. Flipping back to the front page, the biggest thing is we wanted an undesignated fund balance because we want some capital money set aside in case there's a problem. If we have a problem with a pump station, we need to have funds available, problem with sewer line, they're all costly expenses. So what we've always maintained a healthy fund balance to cover that type of thing if it ever were to occur. We do all the possible things to prevent that and through routine maintenance, but it's very important to have a sizable fund balance. And currently, we're about in the range of 30 to 35% of the operating budget that we carry for the fund balance. And sort of walking it through, when setting the user fee, it comes down to really, as we're applying some of the fund balance from the previous year, what do we want to have for remaining fund balance? And again, we've tried to maintain it between 30 and 35%. In the scenarios you see before you in the budget, at a rate of $490 per unit, that fund balance is about 33% of the operating budget. At a $480 per unit, it's closer to about 31% of the budget. $490 rate, basically trying to maintain essentially the same fund balance as we had last year. The manager proposed budget is a lesser number, but again, it still maintains about 31% of the operating budget. When we put this budget together, we did not have the Greater New Haven WPCA costs. We just got them last week. We put an estimated number in here. That's why it is what it is, and maybe Mike didn't make an adjustment. It actually came in about, we budgeted $146,000 for Greater New Haven WPCA, came in about $140,000. The net result would be at the $480 per unit rate, our ending unassigned fund balance would go from $511,000 to about $518,000. So it brings up to about 31% more or less undesignated fund balance. Alternatively, you consider if we ran it, if this number, the estimated unit charge would remain at $475, the current rate, it would bring the ending unassigned fund balance down to about $505,000. They're all within reason. And again, it's a balancing act. It's within sort of what our target has been. Again, on the one side, you don't want to bring it down too much too soon. On the other side, it's a minor, between 30% and say 30.5% to keep it at the 475. I mean, that may be something I'm throwing it out as an option because we did get a little better number from Greater New Haven WPCA.
So if it was at 475, we'd be at, that number would be around 30%?
Yeah, that number would be about $505,000 instead of $511. The looking forward, and that's what we've always tried to do to maintain a balance. We don't want to see the blips up and down. Some of the intermunicipal costs, some capital costs that Branford has been charging us for the past 5 years. This is the last year of it. It's about a $57,000 a year cost that goes away next year. Branford is also, we've been paying for their treatment plant upgrade costs, which we've got a couple of years left on that. We received notice that they refinance their bond into that. So that'll essentially, maybe it might stretch out the payment, but lessen the payment over time. But we've got to look at that. If it doesn't affect this year's budget going forward, it may help us with the bottom line number. They've actually projected that they're gonna go down quite a bit next year and then go up the following year. What we're gonna have to do with next year's budget is make sure we stay consistent with our numbers, build up that fund balance a little higher next year, because we know we have something coming down the road, a bigger expense. And again, that doesn't directly affect this year. We'll be working on that next year. The next year, we'll probably come back to you with a thought process of what we're gonna do before we get to the budget. The other problem with this budget, we can just get the numbers, maybe a week before the budget. If we're lucky, before the budget even has to go out. We're guessing until the last minute, but they've come in pretty good. And bottom line, you know, whatever final number, this is the suggested motion, when you get to consider it, whether 490, 480, or 475.
Well, we're in a serious drought, so I figure the flow rate is gonna really drop. Because you're not gonna get that much infiltration.
Yeah.
Down 10 inches of rain, so I can't see it going up. But my recommendation would keep it the same, 475. Put that in a motion if anybody,
Well, I think we're still in the public hearing yet, so can't,
yeah, but I'm saying.
yeah, there is a proposed motion.
That's it. I don't think I don't think there's anyone else for public comment under the hearing.
And we can ask. Then we can.
Yeah, just ask.
Okay. Any other comments? Any public comments?
Let me just. No emails.
No? Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing at 7:47.
I'll second it. Do you really need a motion? Doesn't Tom just declare the
Oh,
public hearing closed?
Okay, let's close the public hearing at 7:47.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Anytime you put in charge.
Mr. Mayor, there was one comment on the Facebook page from Jerry McDermott. It said that he thinks the flow rate will likely increase with everyone working from home.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just add one thing I didn't touch base on, because that point brings it up. What I did in the number of units, I forgot to add that, I actually dropped the number of units from last year to this year, and that's based upon commercial flows. Our commercial users' discharge actually went down. Regional Water Authority, which is a big user, their flows went down. Evergreen Woods went down a little bit. And it was interesting to look, Evergreen Woods, I had a monthly flow, and sort of from March, the period after March, their flows went down. Again, but I don't think we have to change it. I adjusted for that in the numbers here to come up with this number. I think, just an interesting point.
Okay. So we're back in regular session.
Yep, and you can take up Mike, or Mike can make a motion, or anyone.
I'll make a motion, be it resolved, the North Branford Water Pollution Control Authority, acting in its capacity as a sewer authority for the town of North Branford, hereby adopts an attached sewer budget and establishes sewer fee of $4.75 per unit for the 2020-2021 fiscal year.
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
resignations and
No,
appointments.
we have one other thing.
What's that?
It's the adoption of the capital.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right.
So I'd like to make a motion, be it resolved that the North Branford WPCA, acting in its capacity as the sewer authority for the town of North Branford, hereby adopts the attached sewer capital budget for the 2021 fiscal year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain.
Okay. Number 11, resignations and appointments, nothing. 12, unfinished business, EMR training invoices, budget,
Yeah, these two are separated out there, but they're really kind of tied together, and this is the information that we didn't get to the last two meetings, but you have a very detailed memo and background information for 12AI regarding the EMR training invoices. Both Chief Seward and Deputy Chief and Finance Director Anthony Esposito are here to go through any of those questions, but the detail is there with respect. I know there were some questions about whether he signed off or how that process worked. He's not the training officer, but serves as a instructor, and there is a lot of information with respect to the amount of classes taught and when those classes were, and the documentation for all of that is there. So Anthony, I'm sure, can walk you through it and answer any questions you have or any concerns you may have with respect to the process and or the chief with respect to the scheduling and assignment of training classes.
Given the town attorney's opinion on this matter, what is the threshold that needs to be met for something to have to go out to bid like this, as far as dollar value?
Our dollar value for is $7,500. Anything over that, we go to bid.
It was my understanding, I was told that Anthony was being paid $20 an hour to conduct the trainings, but after looking at the invoices, it looks like he's basically charging about almost $44 an hour. I know it doesn't meet the threshold, but given the attorney's opinion and the optics on this matter, I don't know, I think I'd like to see it go out to bid.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could potentially explore that. I think there's some documentation in here with respect to the other course or instructors that are in there. My understanding, and I certainly defer to the chief, I don't know this industry that well, but that's, I think we're getting the best deal in terms of our costs. I think it is referenced on the bottom of the page, $250 per student. But certainly let Anthony or the chief speak to that in terms of the cost effectiveness of the program.
Good evening. On August 5th, I'm going to back up a little bit. It's important that you have the full story. So on August 5th, I sent an email to the town manager, and it was in regards to an email that I received from the town manager earlier in that day with questions that were posed by Deputy Mayor Zampano. Those questions surrounded the responsibility for budgeting, the types of training, who recommends and or approves, who are the training persons or organizations use, scheduling, who schedules, attendees, how trainees selected for training, requisitions, who creates requisitions, approvals, who approves requisitions, purchase orders, who creates POs, when is a PO created, invoices, who signs off, verifies price, content of training, and then who creates and signs payments. For each of these questions, I responded back to the town manager with specific details about each of those questions that was posed by the deputy mayor on that date. I could easily go through each of these questions that were posed by the deputy mayor and answer them as to how we internally operate as a fire department and how we provide training to our members. I know that your agenda item specifically talks of EMR training, but training in the fire department goes far above and beyond that. That's a small part of what is done in the fire department. At your disposal.
Chief, just to the town manager's point, do you feel we're getting a good deal on this?
So, the short answer is yes. The long answer with regards to going to bid would open up a can of worms. It really would. The way training is done now was done before I became chief in 2005. And I was told by the Board of Fire Commissioners that's how we do things here. So that has continued. And what you gotta remember is that training is not done arbitrarily. Training is done and is predicated upon statutes that are promulgated by the Connecticut Department of Public Health, Office of Emergency Medical Services, specific to the cycle of initial and refresher training that's set forth by the regulations. So it's not when we want to do it, we do it. It's a regularly scheduled refresher training program that is done for emergency medical responders, previously called medical response technicians, EMTs, later changed to EMRs, and then for EMTs. And over the last couple of years, the state regulations for training has changed significantly, not only the hours, but how training has to be done and the format it has to be done with. And that responsibility falls upon certified emergency medical service instructors. Now, we have a handful, including Deputy Chief Esposito and the fire department, that are certified to provide this level of training. The process is, for example, let's say in the second quarter of this year, calendar year, there's 8 people that need to be recertified. Sometime prior to their expiration date, they have to attend this training program. Well, the training program has to be authorized by the State Department of Health. That means an application process is filed by the emergency medical service instructor, who's the authority having jurisdiction for that program. That falls on that person's shoulders. So once that's approved, then the class can be scheduled, but not until. Additionally, the class cannot be held until the application is signed off, not only by the instructor, but by our medical director from Yale New Haven Sponsor Hospital. They ultimately can say whether or not we do the program. And they do that for no charge to us. So that's part of belonging to the Yale Health Systems, Yale Center for EMS program. So, in fact, it's a good deal the way we do things, as opposed to, even though from time to time we may have to send 1 or 2 people out because we don't have a class running, or it's not financially feasible or cost effective to run a class in-house for 1 or 2 people. But the overall price is, I kind of look at it as the industry standard today throughout the state of Connecticut. There's nobody out there teaching these classes that are making a lot of money doing it. There's an awful lot of work, a lot of preparation, a lot of after the class work that's involved. So, you know, what you see in class is 50% of the work. The other 50% of the work is done behind the scenes by the EMSI that's responsible for the administration of that program. So it's a good deal to keep it in-house.
Okay.
It keeps things in order for us. It really does. And that's just on the EMS side. We haven't even broached the fire side.
And you review all of these, all of the bills that get submitted to it?
So, yeah, if you look at the information that's in your handout, absolutely. Yeah.
The original question wasn't specific to EMR.
Mhm.
The original question was just an overall question.
Yeah, and-
From the process.
And that's the answer that I
Right,
gave.
and I appreciate that, because I think it was well put.
Yeah.
And I appreciate the way you guys are handling it, especially if it's, I just was worried about the way it looked, and I just wanted to make sure that we were following the proper procedures and that, you know, it didn't look like we were doing anything we weren't supposed to be doing. So if in fact that is the case, and we are within industry standards, and it better serves our fire department and our town, then I thank you very much, and I thank Anthony very
I
much.
think if you looked at the surrounding fire departments that are contiguous to us, you'll find that they operate the same way. There's no different. I mean, it's fairly transparent.
I was looking to clarify the dollar amount. This is the gross amount for the class. State instructor comes out of that, my sub-instructors come out of that, Red Cross, CPR cards come out of that. So you can't take that number and divide it by the 18 hours per class and
Okay.
per hourly rate. As the chief mentioned, there's prep work, there's post work, there's applying for the program.
And that's a lot of stuff that we don't get to see, so.
Right, so the
yeah,
number really, you can't just divide it and say that was great.
I appreciate that explanation.
So I guess the next question I would have then, goes back to, again, a policy in place for the town. So when we have something, we have a need, so we request it, we approve it, we get an invoice, we validate whether it's what's a correct invoice or not. Is there a written document that says how that flows?
Yeah.
Yeah, in the system, yeah.
Okay. That was really what that whole question was all about. What, is there a policy in place? And who signs what, who approves what?
There's a policy,
That-
Mike, or you're just referring to the process you have to go through in the system?
No, there's a very large document, that
It's all flow charted and
flow
everything,
chart,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
I can get copies for you if you want.
Chief, all training goes through your office?
So training, the training request, whether it's, no matter what program it happens to be, goes through the deputy chief of training, now the deputy chief of support services.
Which is?
They do all the scheduling.
Who's that?
Mark Amchudo. Previous, it was Bob Colangelo.
So you're notified
Yes.
of the training?
Yep.
Okay.
As the classes are scheduled, they send out the notices, and we're all copied.
So there's, again, just to be transparent, I think it pretty much goes through like almost 3 layers, right? It'll go through the deputy chief, it'll go through you, it'll go through the town manager. So there's checks and balances built in there.
It actually can work 2 ways. It could be a firefighter, as a member of the company, says to their captain, hey Cap, it's April now, but in July, I need a refresher. So that flows up through the chain of command, through training. Okay, I have 1 person for July, maybe I have 3 people for January, and there's you get a built-in grace period. So, okay, it's more beneficial for us to wait till December to do the class to capture both audience. Or it could be, I'm going through the master list that we have on file in our database, and I see that there's 15 people that are due 6 months from now. I'm gonna announce a training class.
I have a question to the town council, I guess, and Ben, please answer my question. I read Ben's thing, and it seems like every time we get a new town attorney, we throw it back at them. Way I read it was, we had Gismon's opinion, we had Young's opinion, and now we have his opinion. When are we gonna accept our lawyer's opinion? And every time we get a new lawyer, this keeps coming up. To me, it's a waste of time. You gonna wait till you get a lawyer that you're happy with? Every time they get their opinion, we find something wrong with his opinion. We don't like his opinion, or we didn't like Pat Young's opinion, or we didn't like Gismon's opinion. Guys, put it to bed. Am I wrong on this?
I agree.
Am I wrong on this? 3 attorneys, so we fire him, we get rid of him, we hire another attorney, and next town council's gonna listen to the same thing? Well, We're talking pennies on what we're worried about in this town, guys. Pennies. I don't care if we get $20, $30. We have much bigger things. We have buildings falling down. Let's move on to things that make a difference in this town than rather Anthony Esposito getting a check for doing a class for $40. Come on, guys. His time, Young's time, and Jisman's time is much more valuable than this. And my time's more than valuable than this. Listen to 3 attorneys, render an opinion, and wait till you come up with something you like.
And it's not about, I understand your frustrations, and trust me, I have the same frustrations. And it's not about that. We had talked earlier, we're very frustrated, we wanna put it to bed just as much as you do. But we wanna make sure that it's transparent, it's out there, and there are questions from people in the community, and the way I addressed my questions tonight was hopefully to provide them with the answers that they were looking for to show that we could put it to bed. It may have come across as though I was maybe picking on whatever.
No, not right.
No, I know, but trust me, we wanna put it to bed.
And there's as
just
many
much as you
citizens
do.
out there wondering what we're doing, bringing 3 lawyers into settling something that was very minute in this town,
I
when we
agree.
have much major things going on in this town, than worried about someone who's trying to do a good deed and not making $1 million off us.
I thank the chief and I thank Anthony, and
I understand
and
that,
hopefully
but-
we can put it to bed.
I mean, 3 lawyers? Come on, guys. We have to put it to bed. Like, Ron, I agree with you that whatever we come up with, we have to have it in place. And hopefully this will put it in place, but if we haven't gotten to place after 3 times, come on. I'm done.
I agree.
Thanks.
I just have something to add. As the Board of Fire Commissioners at their last meeting, we stopped all training being done at Company 4 until we could settle what was going on. We didn't know if we should be charging for use of the building, so we informed Anthony and everybody that we were ceasing all training being done at the Company 4 level. I need a little guidance on if I should open it back up and let him use the building again. He can't use the building, we should be charging him, not charging him. I mean, I was gonna talk to the attorney, talk to Mike, see, if we do charge, where does the money go, how much do we charge? But as of right now, all training is ceased at the ambulance building.
Well, is the training just for North Branford Fire, I mean, like in the,
Well, I mean, we came up with any North Branford fire training without any outsiders. We were gonna let them use the building. Any citizens that wanted, any North Branford citizens that wanted a CPR card, and Anthony was willing to give the class, we weren't gonna charge. But if he has one out-of-town person in the class, or what do? Do we charge to use the building? Do we charge to use our CPR dummies if he has out-of-town residents? I mean, we needed a bunch of answers, so as of the last meeting, we ceased all, until we could get answers.
well, what would
Now,
you,
If you wanna settle this, we have to, do I open it back up to him? Let him use the building?
Well, what are you proposing to us?
I mean, I'm proposing if he has out-of-towners in the class, do I make him pay? Do I still let him use the building for free?
well, what is your percentage of outer-towners to
The
town
Fire Commission
people?
has no, not that we don't have any authority, but I mean, I have no, they don't come to us and say, we're running a class with 13 members and they go to the chief. So we really don't know. I walk into the building sometimes and and I see a class going on. We don't know that there's a class going on. Fire Commission, the chief knows there's a schedule. So I mean, for me to tell you there's 15 out-of-towners and 10 fire, I don't know that. We don't know that.
I would say if personally, if the fire commission and the chief are in agreement on the training being done, then me personally, I don't have a problem with it.
Vin, you wanna,
Yeah, no, my question, in reference to the, out-of-towners is, what is the distinction between a class for in-town residents and people who do not live in town? Generally, it is if it's a vendor who is making a profit off of the use of the municipal building. So if it's a training service for your firemen at no cost, or, you know, it's being paid for by the town, the individual is, the relationship is with the town, and there's no private monies being generated. If you're training town residents or out-of-town residents, presumably those people are paying directly to the vendor. And so I don't understand why are we discriminating against people who do not live in town? The net effect would be the same, unless the town is providing this to its residents at no cost. So I don't understand that distinction.
I think there was a concern that, and I'm not saying it was justified, but there was a concern that the facilities were being used to basically run a business and make money, and not necessarily benefit completely the town,
But
which I don't think was the case now after doing that. So the question then became, you know, do you charge for use of our facilities and our equipment and stuff like that, or, you know, it was a question that was raised, and we're, along with you and many others here, just trying to figure it out, I think.
Right, and I would submit that to the extent that you have a third-party vendor providing training classes in a town facility, if there's a rental fee charged, then the client that is attending that class and the client's residency is not really germane to the analysis. Is the vendor paying a rental fee to the community for use of the space? And if the answer is yes, then again, residency I don't think should be a prerequisite. If the answer is no, then I think the policy is that if you want to utilize space, no matter who you are, for a for-profit purpose, there is a rental fee for use of the town facility. And that's probably the simplest way of resolving the issue.
See, our feeling was it was a town-owned building, so the people that live in town, their taxes are paying for the building. They're paying for the heat, they're paying for the air conditioning. Out-of-towners, they're not paying for nothing.
The residents of Greenwich said the same thing about their beaches. And the Connecticut Supreme Court said that the beaches were open to all taxpayers, not just to residents of that community. So these are public buildings, ultimately, and I think you cannot deny access to a public building to anyone from the public. So I think you run afoul if you go too far in that direction.
Additionally, as a former Red Cross instructor, a lot of times the vendors that will come out will subcontract out for non-residents to come into those classes anyways. You see it in the lifeguarding world, you see it in the CPR world. It is a very common practice to, if you're able to certify another person, you're gonna have that person come into the class so that you can do a favor to another community. Just like you would wanna send a firefighter if you're not running a class to another community and be able to help them out. So you may wanna take that into consideration as well.
So maybe I can clarify a couple things for you. So historically, in the fire department, through the Board of Fire Commissioners, way before I became chief, there's a building use form. So, for example, at Company 4, if a certified instructor wanted to run a class for a particular type of category of training, they would fill out a building use form, put what it was down for, who was going to be attending, and any other further details. Historically, in my early days as chief, I would sign them, and then I stopped signing them. And I stopped signing them because it was a town-owned building, and the town-owned building comes under the jurisdiction of the Fire Commission. So what type of classes take place there? CPR for firefighters, CPR for public, babysitting classes for public. And there's probably a dozen or less people that serve in the capacity of instructor in any of those categories that over the years have conducted training classes at Company 4. Deputy Chief Esposito does a lot of the EMR and EMT, and he, from time to time, may have done CPR classes. Annually, I can tell you that I am provided with a certificate of insurance from Anthony from his position of vendor. There's others that are members of the department, and they use the facility because they are a member of the department, member of Company 4 specifically, to do CPR and babysitting classes. So outside of those three categories of training, there's no other training that takes place there. It's CPR, babysitting, and EMR, EMT refreshers. That's it.
Chief, you made the comment before about the Board of Fire Commissioners said this is the way we conduct training, and this is where we're gonna do training. Has that ever been updated?
So, trying to explain that a little bit, Mike. What do you mean?
Well, you said, you made the statement before, that when you first came on.
Yeah.
You said, you said the Board of Commissioners said this is the way we do training, and this
Yep.
is the way we're gonna do training.
Mm-hmm.
Has that ever been corrected or updated?
So it
Are we
was-
following a procedure? Do we have
Yep,
any
it-
written rules, you
That
know?
change happened last month.
Okay.
But believe me, since I've been on the fire commission, I never approved a training class. I never knew about a training class when it was run. So maybe that was before his time and my time. Because since I've been there, I don't approve them, I don't know when they are, and I don't know who's running them. So, that was before my time.
Both of us could say that we had a meeting scheduled at Company 4 one night. We went in there, there was a class taking place, and we were gonna have our meeting there. We couldn't because there was a class taking place there, we knew nothing about.
So now you do.
Well, now no training is taking place there.
Okay.
Well, that's the question right now.
Chief, how would you like to see it proceed from here?
I would like to see because the Board of Fire Commissioners, by the town code, is responsible for the facility. So they have enacted basically cease and desist at the present time. But I would like to see them go back and revisit and come up with a standard with a priority to our own department and personnel. I think the general public over the years have had a very valuable experience getting training there, whether it's from babysitting classes, public CPR classes, or within our own department. And I don't believe it's compromised, so may written guidelines need to be tweaked? Yeah, probably.
I'd hate to see those services lost to the community.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I do too.
So, it's not a big issue, in my mind. It seems like there's a lack of communication on what was going on, when it was going on, and I think that's the fire commission and your group should be able to put something together, and everyone will know when training is, when training isn't, amongst yourselves.
So, I know we're on public communications here, and I'll tell you the same thing I've told many department members. The days of the club are over. It's gotta stop. It's a fire department, it's a business. It's a $750,000 a year business, and that's the way it's gotta be run. This is not 1970, it's not 1980. Things have changed, and we need to change with the times.
Correct. You need that, we need a guideline, a policy that's followed, and everybody's aware of it.
That's right.
I agree.
So according to what I'm understanding, according to the attorney, we can't charge for out of town. Right? Is that?
You
can't.
Did you previously, Dave?
No, we never charged at all for anyone.
You should treat everyone the same.
Well, you did charge the town for your own people.
Well, but I mean, we never charged the instructors to use the building. Never. I mean, the instructors
Right,
charge the
right,
town
I got you.
to train the members, but But now, I mean, every year, when we talk about the fire training facility, everybody always asks us, well, how much money did it make last year? I mean, could we charge for the training facility and we can't charge for the training room? I mean, or can we charge for nothing? I mean, we don't charge because the Army uses it, we don't charge the military, but I mean, every year, you know, the town council asks, how come we're not making any money with the training facility? So if we're charging for the training facility, then why can't we charge for the room? Or if we can't charge for the room, we should be able to charge for the training facility.
Ed, I don't think we ever asked that question.
Yes, you did.
What?
Remember, they asked, and then we told them that we don't charge for mutual aid
Yes,
accounts,
yes, yeah.
and we don't charge the military.
No, because I think somebody,
I'm not saying
I
we
think
should.
somebody said from the fire department, we charge for, you know, different towns to come in and use our facility. I don't think any council people specifically asked, how much money are you making on the facility? At least I can't remember it.
Well, I mean, I know we were asked, how come we don't, weren't we asked that time? Why we didn't charge for the training facility? Yeah, it's been brought up.
Dave, can you work with the chief and just come up with a policy that this is how we're gonna do it, and then, as long as you guys
The
are.
main thing is, we wanna do it legally. If we can't charge, then fine, I'll open it up tomorrow, you can start running classes tomorrow. If we could charge, then we have to set a policy.
Are you asking, I'm
No,
not sure if
I
you're
need to-
asking if you can charge, or if you're.
Yeah, I mean, I need direction here, I mean, I need to know what to tell
Well,
Anthony.
what is it that you wanna do, cause that's not clear to me.
I wanna open the training back up, I want them to use the
But-
room again.
Are you in favor of charging people or no?
But no, no, not at all.
All right, then put a policy together, talk to the chief, work something out, and then go from there.
Once you got a policy, you could open it back up. But you
I
have
mean,
to have,
like I said, I
you
don't
should
wanna
have a
do-
policy.
I didn't wanna do anything illegal, like, now I would've said out of towners pay, and that's why I wanted to talk to the attorney first before we opened it up. Now I know that you can't do that.
Right, you need to create the document, the policy, whatever we wanna call it, and everybody gets trained on it that's associated with it.
May I suggest if they want to draft a policy and forward that policy to me for review?
There you go. Thank
and
you.
we can take it from there.
Thank you.
That's
Okay.
fine.
Unused funds.
Request, item B, which is request to use 2019, 2020 unspent funds from Board of Fire Commission, Fire Communication tabled.
Tom, do you wanna go back though to,
Oh.
the budget, questions, comments, cause that was
Oh.
really just EMR, yes, and there's a lot more in it. If you wanted to just go right to questions, but there's a lot more in terms of, unresolved, maybe unresolved, but maybe this document does it, I don't know. But I didn't wanna skip over it with an opportunity to go through that as well. There were some questions about the formula for, the rebates for, the condos. There was questions about pension calculations and all of those, items outlined there. If you want Anthony to walk you through it or not, or
Yeah.
just wanna go through questions.
Just walk through it, Anthony.
All right.
There's been a lot of question on it.
So you have in your packet my memo and then the multiple pages of backup. The first one is item 1A. And the question that was posed was, geez, for 2 years now, we've had surpluses in the police 120 line. Right? The budget's gotta be screwed up. There's gotta be an error somewhere. And that's not 100% correct at all. What you see in 18-19, you had 4 people, and then the pages are included for you to see who was in the budget at the time the budget was created, and the positions. And you have 4 people that changed. The first one being the police chief, who was budgeted at the former chief's. You have 2 tiers of people, basically. You have a defined benefit crowd, and you have a defined contribution crowd. So the police chief was budgeted at defined benefit, 43.2% of salary. For the whole 18-19 year, you may recall that the position was open. No one was not filled, so, you had Kevin come in May of 19, and he was in a 10% defined contribution plan. So that one position alone resulted in about $48,000 of savings in that line. Next one, you had another sergeant, I won't mention any names. Sergeant left, last year he was on a medical leave, so his actual pension, the person that replaced him, is not in pension for a year. There's $32,000. Another sergeant went out who was on a workers' comp type situation. His replacement comes in, nothing for a year, another $31,000. So those, and the last one, they're all the same. $143,000, it was all predicated on personnel changes. When you budget people at this level, and the replacement comes in at this level, you're gonna have savings. It's not that the budget was screwed up, it's not that there's error, it's the fact of personnel. 1B, let's go to 1920, this past year that ended. Again, about $117,000 of savings, and how do we account for that? Well, the first one is overtime. If you look at the personnel listing, I believe it was 16 to 6. You had 16 people in the DB plan, only 6 in the DC plan. The DC people don't get anything for the pension on overtime. But 15 months out, how do I know if it's the DB people gonna get the overtime or the DC people gonna get the overtime? Do I budget the 48% the DB people or the 0 for the DC people when it's 16 to 6? In my mind, I budget conservatively and go, everybody's getting the bigger pot getting the overtime. If it doesn't work out that way, guess what? You're gonna have savings. But there's no way to know 15 or 16 months out who's getting the overtime. The DB people or the DC people? There's no way to calculate that. So we budget, the overtime is calculated at the pension, the full pension amount. Same for holiday pay, straight time, and in the case of the police chief, again, the 1920 budget, because Kevin came in May, budget was in March, April, it had the old police chief's formula, if you want to call it that, in there. The budget was predicated on that. Well, we all know that the new chief's on a different salary level, so those 4 items add to $117,000 of savings. Again, it's not that there's errors, not that there's mistakes, it's all black and white. Next item was about the solid waste, I believe.
Before we go too far there, we get a monthly budget report.
Yes.
Where it becomes unremarkable.
Yes.
That mentioned savings over time should be highlighted to the town council, so they know. That's the reason Ron came up with that form. So in the future, we're not surprised at the end of the year that one year we have 143,000, next year we have 117,000. Should be brought to somebody's attention that there's a big surplus in certain accounts.
Well, when you get to that part of the meeting tonight, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
The next one was the solid waste. And again, you look at when the year started, 1920, it was one number we have from John's Refuge, that consolidated bulky waste collection and disposal. Right? We had no way of knowing the breakup of those numbers. Well, 1920 comes around, Andy comes before you guys and says, I gotta split it up. Didn't wanna do the bulky waste anymore. Resulted in those changes. Bulky waste was unbudgeted. Condo rebates, the question about how does condo rebates work? Well, you look, the one that says number 3 in your packet was the number that was done April of 2018, the one just before the 1920 budget was done. You notice the number was $73,500 for the condo rebates. We put $75,000 in the budget, going a little bit higher than we thought. Well, it came in at 81, as you saw in reality. What drives that? Well, let me explain the condo rebate formula to you. See all the listing of all these assessments? They have to be gone through every year and figure out what people's assessment are, because the condo rebate is a derivative of how much they paid in taxes. So every condo, 810 condo units you see on this paper, have to be gone through everybody's assessment to see what their assessed value is for that particular grand list year. And then the percentage on the first page, the percentage of the mill rate that they didn't get the benefit of when this was incorporated back, I think it was 92 or 93. Previously, trash was a separate service you paid for on your own. It was incorporated into taxation in 92, 93, I believe. And the provision that was made was said, well, okay, we're gonna raise everybody's taxes, but guess what, you in the condos, we're gonna raise your taxes, but you're not gonna get the benefit of this trash collection. So we're gonna make the playing field even, we'll give you that money back. And that's what this attempts to do. It says, okay, we charge 0.72 of a mil too much to Marie's Condo Association. We owe those people the money back. Now, in some cases, they take it individually. You know, you see Country Woods takes it individually, Twin Lakes takes it individually, Twin Lakes Golfing takes it individually. So she's cutting checks to everybody you see there individually for the condo rebates. So again, at the time that the budget was created, the last one we had done was 73.5. We put 75 in the budget. It came in at 81. What's the big mover? It looks like Evergreen Woods. Well, thinking about it now, they put the generators in that time span, did some work in the buildings, raised the assessed value, raised the taxes, raised the condo rebate. It's black and white. The last item I think was the was Louisa with the money for the renters rebate. Again, that's been kicked around so many times by different governors as a way to kind of solve things. So we put money in the budget, $25,000, to be 1/2 of the renters rebate program. I included the paperwork that shows you at one point it's the responsibility of the towns. Well, then maybe it's 50% responsibility. Well, then now we're going to take the whole thing over. So we had played it safe and put 50% number in. We pay about $50,000 as our annual renters rebate. Put that in the budget. It didn't happen. The state changed their mind and they ate the whole program. So that $25,000 was surplus in Louisa's budget. Didn't impact her budget at all. It was put in there specifically earmarked for that item. And because it didn't happen, it was surplus money. At the end of the year, the question was, how does the end of the year work? Well, end of the year works, if I look at Vinny's department is overexpended, but Mike's department has money, I move money from one to the other. It goes before you guys as a budget transfer. So I look at all the people that need, all the people that have, and I marry them together. And it goes before you guys as a budget transfer to make the books balance. Again, so there's no hocus pocus, there's no errors, there's no lazy, I heard all kinds of words that boggled my mind, and my department's a little upset, quite honestly. Because the way that it was portrayed for the public was that the finance department's lazy, they're overstaffed, all kinds of negative terms that came out that really were uncalled for and inaccurate. It's all black and white. There's anything's available for public scrutiny. There's no secret sauce. It's all black and white. So I hope that answers your budget questions.
Well, I think part of the frustration is.
Wait, go ahead. Walter's trying to.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Walter.
I'm just saying, Anthony, thanks for the explanation. We appreciate that.
You're welcome, Walter.
Yeah, and I think part of the frustration is not having this kind of an explanation when it's presented to us and just given to us in line item transfers with no explanation, and that's when questions come up. So we do appreciate your comments and explaining it further, and I think we just need a little bit more detail going forward.
Anthony, great job. I think you cleared the air with the public and you made yourself look good tonight, so thank you.
And I think that form that I presented last meeting, to Rose's point, my hope is that it clears some of this up and gives us a little bit more information so that we do have a better understanding of those different issues, and obviously, some of the ones you described were, obviously there's nothing you could do about it. So.
I got your format for the August report. I'll give it to you at the time.
Okay, thank you.
Do we want to spend, I just thought maybe on that point, for Ron, to spend time talking about the format or again, there's a lot to unpack, given the fact that the budget moves, it's a dynamic budget, right? So the criteria of the 5% over under.
Right, but he should be able to look at it and he should be able to use a run rate and figure out where we're supposed to be, and then plus or minus from there based on the 12-month average, and then let us know, just so that we, or if there's anything obvious like the stuff that he was just describing that jumps out at us. But the main point of that form is it involves commentary, and it gives us a little bit of an explanation as to why, so that because what people don't realize is as council members, we get asked a lot of questions from people in the community.
Right.
And we might not always have the answer, so we gotta go looking for them. And depending on how those questions are asked to us, we'll be like, oh, what the heck's going on? You know? And so, I know for me, all I'm looking for is a little bit more information, a little bit more substance behind why things are the way they are, so that when I get questioned, I can give a better explanation, or at least try to find a better explanation as to why things are the way they are. And I think if we got that, and it's on a quarterly basis, so it's only, 4 times a year, most of the numbers on that, if not all of them, are basically just plug-in numbers that Anthony already has. And then we have a better understanding of where we stand. And also going into budget season, we have a much clearer picture of where we stand as far as, having excess money, being overspent, underspent. Because, and I know this year was an anomaly with the virus and everything else like that, but, I think we could do a little bit better if we had just a little bit more information going into budget season, and we can make more responsible decisions with the taxpayers' money, having that information and that background.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think there's an opportunity to tweak the format, and I think as you see, going forward, we can improve upon the format and put it in the right venue and the right format to look and improve upon it. But and I think it's going to be a working document. We're going to tweak it as we go, right? I mean, just because there'll be things that you'll want to see and say, or not quite understand, and say, okay, maybe we could do it better this way. Yeah.
Constant improvement, that's all.
Yep. Thanks, Anthony.
No problem.
So moving on to request to use 2019, 2020 unspent funds from Board of Fire Communication.
Yeah, that was tabled and it's back, and the chief is here. I think my understanding is that they want to proceed with that request. And that would essentially mean, with the new numbers, that fund would have to go further negative in order to meet the request.
Yeah, so based upon the available information that we had at the time, on the fire side, we had $42,034.13, and Councilmember Angeloni asked Anthony for the numbers from the ambulance side as we ended the budget. And I received an email on September 2nd from Anthony that went to the town manager, chairperson of the board, and myself with regards to the negative number where we are now. So the question is, do we stay in the negative and take money from that to allow us to make this one-time endeavor possible, or do we stay at a better negative?
I don't know how you could go a worse negative and make it worse.
Anthony, just want to go over the numbers over the last couple of
Yeah,
years?
I think what the question at hand is, if we leave everything the way it is, leave the savings in the ambulance budget with a little bit of a surplus on the revenue side, we end up with a negative $14,000 fund balance. We had predicted in the budget book about a negative $24,000 fund balance. I know the chief is looking for roughly around 60-odd thousand to do the uniform purchase. 40-odd would come from the fire side, and then 20-odd would come from the ambulance side. So that would bring your 20 on top of your 14, you end up being 34 in the hole. So instead of being 10 better than you kind of thought, it might make you 10 worse than you thought. And that's this discussion and decision you guys have to make. Do you want him to keep the negative 14, which is 10,000 better than we predicted, or are you gonna let him use the 20 to team up with the 40 to get to the 60-odd number that he needs, end up being like 34 in the hole? That's what it boils down to.
I could see using the 42. I can't see using something we don't have.
So that would not allow us to do what we would like to do, but every good fire chief has a plan A, B, and C.
We know that.
So.
That's because you're a
So
good fire chief.
I do have a plan B, and that would involve using the fire department surplus to enhance what we have at the training facility.
Meaning, can you just explain that a little bit?
Yeah,
I
sure.
don't know what that means.
So in conversation with the people that are responsible for the training facility, that know what we need as far as training, skill, knowledge, and ability is, to purchase a couple sea containers and lumber to make a training maze that would supplement what we do at the training facility. If you don't already know, we're in a construction mode down at the training facility right now, based upon a donation from a civilian to construct a roof simulator. So we have an open building permit that we're working on right now, and probably next Monday night the rafters will be set, and that's paid with a kind donation from a civilian who had a relative that was killed in the line of duty outside of Connecticut. So that next component added to that would be an internal maze to do fire training, search and rescue, SCBA use, similar to what Branford just constructed. It would make very good use of what we have left over. And it would benefit the entire department, again.
Oh, so you're saying forgo, I'm sorry, yeah, go ahead.
No, I think we're gonna ask the
Yeah,
same
we're gonna
question.
ask the same question.
So you're not looking for the money for the uniforms, you wanna allocate the $42,000 to this maze?
Yes, so either I'm gonna do the uniforms as a whole, I can't do it partial, just won't work.
Right.
So redesignate the project with that excess funds.
So it would be 42,000 designated to this maze that you're referring to?
Yeah.
For the training facility.
That you're-
That I could support.
Yeah, and we wouldn't touch the ambulance.
Okay.
The uniforms would be a great thing for morale, relieve me, but that's your call.
We don't know, we might like Plan C even better.
Well, Plan C, as a matter of fact, Joe, is about $74,000.
You don't want to
Okay.
So
I
we'll
said
go
we
with,
might.
We'll stay
And
with Plan
that has
B.
to do with communication infrastructure from dispatch to the firehouse.
Just a quick question, Chief. You would need the total amount of the 42,000 for the maze?
I'm gonna say ballpark 40.
so I'd like to make a motion to allocate the remaining budget up to $42,000 from the 2019-20 funds to go for improvement of the fire training facility.
That'll be great.
Second that.
Any discussion? Is Walt on board? Is he here?
I'm on board.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
We got a vote on it?
Michelle?
Councilman Mahoney, seconded by Councilor Bleacher.
Correct.
Okay. To allocate the remaining budget up to $40,000 from the 2019-20 budget for,
It was,
Fire department budget.
for fire training improvement,
fire training.
the facility. And it was up to 42,000.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
Okay. Move to C, maintenance upgrades for bathrooms and HVAC at North Branford High School. Any
I
discussion
can
on
speak to
that?
that. Walter is going to work with Bill Chody on what needs to be done in terms of the bathrooms. It's basically some cosmetic thing, particularly the stalls, et cetera. So they're supposed to get together and work on that, right, Walter? I don't know if he can hear me.
Yeah, Walter, can you hear that?
I'm having a hard time hearing Marie.
Yeah, she's just commenting that with respect to the bathrooms at the high school, a plan to get together with Bill Chody to outline that.
And then I guess Anthony was
Yeah,
supposed to
I
have the
agree
number
100%.
of the money that's left and the Board of Ed.
Not
yet.
reconciled yet.
Okay, but they still need to work on that anyway.
Yeah, they can go ahead and
Right.
start getting those costs and.
The other thing, in terms of the heating, what the superintendent told us, and I don't know how accurate this is, that because of the COVID, they have to now keep the classroom doors open, and that will make a difference in terms of the hallways. I would again hope that Bill and Walter would work on that, but according to the superintendent, that will take care of that problem. I don't know if that's accurate, but that's.
It probably will take some of, because in the diamond, if you're talking in the
Not in
diamond.
the diamond.
Right, there are no heaters in the
Right,
hallway,
right,
and
that's
then
the
when they went to
problem.
the security issues where they had to keep the door shut,
Now they have
that's
to
when
open.
it became very cold in there, and now we're
Okay.
going the other way back again because of COVID for another reason, so it probably will take care of some of the issue. I mean, I don't know if there's
Well-
any other thing that can be done to.
Well, supposedly
If
there
they-
are some other ideas that have been tossed around, and so I would
Yeah.
defer to Walter and Bill Chody on that.
I also, yeah, I had a chance to speak with Scott, and superintendent said that, the interesting thing is that Bill Chody is officially retired, but he's working out, trying to the.
Well, that's why I was wondering if he was still gonna.
I think
Yeah,
he's still
exactly,
doing
so,
some stuff.
so he will be available so the superintendent said that he would be available, they'll be working through that with John Florio as well, so and he agreed that they come up with some type of plan, so it's really for me to try and coordinate with Walter, and Bill Chody and John Florio, but it seemed like they were ready to
Okay.
do what they needed to do to make the remodeling, in the bathrooms anyway.
Name and
The issue of the heating in the hallways is exactly the same thing I heard at that design review committee. Whether or not they're gonna go beyond just opening the doors to do anything else, I'm not
Well,
aware.
I think John Florio had some good ideas about that, so I think they need to consult with him.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're ready for a price.
So it's work in progress.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, as long as they continue with that while we wait for the figures, that's fine.
Okay. Item D, discussion and action, referral for a cell tower lease at TVES, 1388 Middletown Avenue.
I would like at this point to ask the town council to table this until there can be a balloon test, a second balloon test is conducted when the leaves are off the trees. That test was not a fair test as far as we are concerned in the village, and I'm sure that the residents are concerned as well. There are a lot of people that are upset about that. I think it just wasn't a fair test, and I've done a lot of research on that, and you should be conducting that kind of a test when the leaves are off the trees. And I can tell you, because I have the scrapes and the bruises to prove it, that tower is close to the residents, some of the residents on Clintonville and close to Montgomery Village. I walked through those woods, and I know what it's like back there. So I'm asking that we table it until we have a second balloon test when the leaves are off the trees. And that's what usually happens in most communities.
I'd like to add to that we refer this to the police department and the fire department to make sure that this tower would work for their benefit, mutual benefit. If it doesn't, why are we even looking at it?
I appreciate that because.
Can I say something? When I bought my house in 1977, they said that
Hold on.
land could not be built
No.
on for
Hold-
100 years.
Yeah.
And it's not 100
Right,
years yet.
hold on, you'll be able to speak at citizen
I'm
statements.
so upset about it.
Yeah.
I'll second Marie's request, because I think that's a reasonable request, that, I saw the pictures and I talked to Marie and I said, what I saw didn't change my thought at all, but I think the request of seeing it with no leaves and in the fall is a reasonable request, because that's when the tower will be prevalent, rather than tall trees and leaves. So I'll second Marie's motion.
Yeah, I thought the same thing when I saw the pictures. But, yeah.
Just for purposes of everyone understanding the process, and obviously, the motion to table is perfectly appropriate, but from a process standpoint, the action of the body tonight would be doing nothing but putting it in the hands of the zoning commission under 8-24 for them to opine on whether or not this location is acceptable from their perspective.
What that would then do is put it back before this body, and set the number of votes that would be required, either a supermajority or a regular majority, depending upon the action of the zoning commission. Then that's where this body could take up whether or not to enter into the ground lease that would be presented. At that time, my point being that if you refer it to zoning and they come back with a negative referral, okay, whatever they decide is not gonna have any ultimate outcome. You will have the ultimate outcome as to whether or not to enter into the ground lease. But if they come back with a negative referral, that should be instructive to you on whether or not, from a land use perspective, they believe this is a good location. In the interim, you would be having input from the fire and the police, and all you would be doing is going one step to bring it back before the body. You could then table it until all the leaves are down and a second balloon test was done. You could table it indefinitely because land use gave a negative referral. But if there's a concern as to, your zoning commission is the body that kind of oversees the use of land within the jurisdiction. And it might, and I just say from a matter of process, it might be instructive to you as you advance this matter. And it doesn't impair anything or doesn't advance anything, because ultimately nothing can advance until you approve a lease, which isn't gonna get done based upon a motion, what the motions that have been coming forward. But then, what ultimately will happen is, when it comes back before the body, you may have fire and police, but you will not have had the benefit of land use. So I just throw that out there for purposes of consideration, but the motion to table is also perfectly.
I totally disagree. I think this thing is moving too quickly. I don't understand when I go in the woods, I see you've already planned, you've already designated, you have stakes up there. This thing is moving far too quickly. It's totally unfair to the people that live in that area. I don't think it's necessary to move it to planning and zoning until we get some more answers. I really am upset about it, and there are a lot of people that are upset about it. It's too early to move it to planning and zoning.
More importantly,
And
if
nobody
we
even knew about
kick
this,
the can,
so people.
Excuse me, you can't.
if we kick the can over to zoning, we're doing the same thing to them that's being done to us, which is we're asking them, who have the charge of being the land use commission, with making the decision without seeing the balloon test with the trees defoliated. So, why is there this urgency to move this matter forward that quickly, where it's gonna be a permanent structure that's gonna be here in town for the next 50 years?
No urgency other than, I don't know what questions they might ask, and those questions might be illustrative. And it can sit in zoning while those answers are being, look, I'm simply here from a process standpoint to say that no action will ever occur unless and until this body approves a land lease. If that never happens, it never gets constructed. So you can rush to a point and then the matter can be stalled forever, right? Because no action can occur unless a ground lease is entered into. My point is, you're always any action that you take is never gonna be fully informed until you get some input from that commission under 8-24. And that's the purpose of 8-24. It has no ultimate outcome other than for them to give a favorable report or a negative report and that's gonna happen regardless. My point is, I don't know what questions they may ask that you might not be thinking of, because this is really within their wheelhouse. And so I just wanna make sure you have all of the benefit of questions preliminarily and beyond. And that's the only point. There's no reason for it to advance if you're uncomfortable. Motion to table is fine, as I said. However, what I want you to know is there's no advancement of the ultimate construction until a ground lease is entered into, and that is not gonna occur until this body is comfortable to do so.
I think it's unfair. I think I agree with what Mike Duty is saying. It should be going to the police first of all, the police department and the fire department are in charge of communications. They haven't had anything to do with this. It seems like you and the town manager have been pushing this along. You got the first letter, it came in June. This town council didn't hear about it till the end of August. I think it's being pushed too quickly. When I go into those woods and I see everything's marked up, why have you only looked at that particular company? Why didn't you look at other companies in this
We did.
state? There are well, you know what, we don't know that, and I don't think it's fair to push this to
Marie,
planning and zoning until we get an
Marie,
answer.
you gotta understand, it's our land. They can't put anything on our land.
Well, I just.
Without
I
our
totally-
approval. So, I mean, if we table the 824 referral, it just sits. If they wanna do another balloon test when the leaves are off and wanna put it on our site and our land, then they have to come back. If not, and we have a majority of the board here that says we don't want it there, guess what? It's our land, they can't put it there. No matter what the siting council says or anybody says, it's not going there without this board's approval.
And for the record, both chiefs are in the loop and are aware, and have been informed and part of meetings.
I talked to one chief and he wasn't sure on all the costs associated with that site, so that's why I wanted them to take a look at it.
Yeah, they can. I have no problem with that. I'm just saying for the record, they've been in loop.
They have, that is not what I hear, that they've been involved. Yes,
As-
maybe the
as-
fire chief has, but I don't think the police chief has.
Oh, no, he definitely has, and.
That's not what he told me yesterday.
Well, the chief can attest to the fact that we were all on a call with the consultant as well. So, I'm not sure why the communication is messed up.
Is there a motion on the floor to table?
Yeah, Marie, and I second it.
Right, so is there any other discussion?
Can I just to the citizens concerned, can we research that and see if they are actually able to build anything on that property? Is that being researched?
Being researched.
Yes, 'cause my builder, Norman Gavin, when I bought the house in 1977, I asked about the property in the back, and
I can
he said
research.
that it was
Thank you.
given to the town and that they
We're gonna look into
built
it.
on it for 100 years.
We're gonna look into it for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so is there any other discussion?
Oh, I could talk, but I'll keep quiet
No.
now.
So there's a motion, second.
All right, could you just remind us exactly what the motion is? We're
It's
voting
a
on?
table.
The motion was to table it.
To table the
Balloon test.
A24 referral.
Until we get a second balloon test.
When
Correct.
the leaves are off the tree.
When the leaves are off the
Right,
trees.
okay.
Well, really, the motion is just to table the
Table.
A20 for referral. If we want a second balloon test, we'll talk to the
Okay.
company
Right.
later.
Right.
But this is just a table, the A24 referral.
Practical matter, that's one and the same as far as I'm concerned.
No.
Yeah.
Go ahead, I'm ready.
All right.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Would anyone like to abstain?
Okay, going into new business. Review of legal opinion concerning treasurer, finance director, deputy chief, instructor.
I think you should all have received a
Yep.
copy of the opinion that I drafted dated September 14. I don't know, do you want me to kind of review it, or do you want me to just answer any questions that you?
I
Can,
think it would be helpful if you, pages 3 through 5, if you kind of review them in layman's terms.
Can we move this to executive session? I'll make a motion to move it to executive session so we could ask some questions under personnel.
The matter, you could refer, since it does relate to a personnel, but you would have to schedule it for a time where we have, under the statute, we have to afford notice to the individual.
I'll
So we
make
might
that,
not be able to do that for this meeting.
I'll make that motion then.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Michelle?
So this was a motion to move into executive session.
Right.
To move the item to
The item
executive
to
session.
executive session.
This item, okay.
Well, just a point of order, so it would be to set it for, in accordance with our statutory obligations, so the matter would be set for executive session at your next meeting.
Right.
Right.
So this item is executive session at next meeting.
With notice to the personnel.
Okay. Item B, review and approve of lease.
Wait,
vote.
there's a vote on a second.
All right, and just that was,
Good try.
Hey, it's getting late.
I
that was
know.
moved by.
Me, seconded by Rose.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Thank you.
Ready? Okay. Item B, review and approve of lease for Citron Power LLC for VNM project.
I have to move that to later on in the agenda, because I have some questions under executive session 15A about that piece of property.
Okay.
Well, do we want to discuss it and ask any questions now while we're in public session here, and then when we come out of executive session, if we want to take a vote on it, then we can take a vote on it, so that we don't have to go through the discussion then. So Mike, do you want to just kind of, or Vin, go over what this lease was, in more technical terms? I mean, I was part of the negotiations and listening through on everything, but you can probably give a better explanation as to what this is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask, since you didn't put me near a plug, my
Yes.
backup died.
Yeah, and we also have Chella on the line as well, if there's any questions. But for the property located along Forest Road for a virtual net metering project for the town to be the beneficiary, we're not the landholder, obviously, but we are the beneficiary in terms of buying power from the entity. And this is the lease drawn up. Basically, the favorable the negotiations have pushed the cost from 13 cents down, if awarded, down to 12.5 if there's no ZREC approval, and 11.95 cents if there is approval. So that was part of the negotiations with them on that, and I believe the term is a 25-year term for that, with the decommissioning component and the vegetation component to come in the permitting process, in which there'll be public informational meetings and getting input from the community with respect to what is seen, how it's seen, and what is used for vegetation and so forth. The decommissioning process and permitting process is also spelled out, in my understanding, into the lease with the landowner with respect to, something that happens after 25 years and the project doesn't go forward, so that there's a safeguard in place there to make sure that it is all taken apart and taken away.
Vin, what became of that question as far as us not meeting the total usage of what's being generated and bringing in another party or what?
Sure. So, under the contract, to the extent that what the town would be doing is entering into an agreement to basically consume a certain amount of its energy needs. So if, assuming you were obligated today to consume 100% of your energy needs, but over the course of time you became more energy efficient, so you consumed less than 100%. I'm using 100% as an example only, that's not what this agreement is based on. Let's assume you became more efficient and you're now only consuming 60%. So you now have 40% of what you contracted to use that you're not consuming. So in order, what the vendor will do is shop around and try to mitigate its losses for your failure of consumption by going around and trying to find a substitute party to take that consumption and pay for that consumption. If it cannot do so, under the contract, you're responsible for liquidated damages. So in other words, so that, because what they're doing, the way that this agreement works is it's basically akin to a financing agreement. They're over the course of 25 years, they have said in order for them to basically make what they expect to make, they need to receive a certain amount of money. So if your consumption drops and you're not paying that amount under the agreement, and if they cannot find a substitute party to consume that, then the town will be obligated under the agreement to pay liquidated damages. I don't have the agreement in front of me, but they may, I don't know if as I sit here, if it's a dollar sum or if it's a sliding scale. That being said, the percentage of consumption, that's why we set the percentage of consumption at a percentage less than 100%, so that the expectation is that for the term of the agreement, the town will realize the savings. So basically, this is a built-in savings that the town will realize over the course of the term. To the extent that the town can still, while this agreement is in place, seek to purchase energy, how we can purchase energy from third-party providers at less pennies per kilowatt hour. The town can still do that. The difference is, and the lack of incentive to the town is, the less that the town pays on a kilowatt hour, the less of a savings it'll have under this agreement. So, in theory, the town should, if the town stays where it is today, paying by kilowatt hour, under this agreement, its savings will be realized as expected. If the town becomes a better consumer and pays less per kilowatt hour, that savings delta will decrease, just because you're changing the equation. But so that's your only risk here is that, what percentage did we set the agreement at of consumption? Do we have,
I think,
was it, we were talking 60?
No, I think it's about 95%. We did, for example, take out the police
right.
or the fire department, one of them that we know
Police.
is already possibly going to move to Wallingford. So we took that out, and I think we're still in the 90% range.
Thank you.
Can you just ask her too, just to let everybody here know, approximately what percentage is lost on the panels year to year?
On the what?
On the panels.
Degradation of the panel.
Oh, Shelley, do you hear that question in terms of what percentage is lost on the degradation of the power year after year?
0.5%.
0.5?
3.5%.
0.5.
Right. The other theory is we're likely going to be greater energy consumers rather than electric consumers rather than lighter on it, because as the cars are transitioning to battery electrical operated and away from gas, over the course of the next number of decades, will likely be consuming, in lieu of spending on petroleum, will likely be replacing that with electricity. So to the extent that let's say a new high school, regardless of how it's built, consumes less energy, that consumption will likely be replaced by other consumption needs of the town. So,
Well, plus we could also, couldn't we change what buildings?
Yes.
What facilities
yes.
we have on there? We have, what, 9 spots or 10 spots? Is it
Yeah,
9? 9?
I believe
So,
it's 9.
so,
You have more than 9. You have a little bit more than 9.
We have some
Because we
flexibility.
have 2 separate contracts so that we maximize the number. So if you want to divide or add little accounts, to Rose's point, we have the ability to change accounts
right.
whenever we want to within the town.
So there might be some facilities that we don't have on there right now because we have the high school and whatever else, and if we see that that's going down, we could add some other ones onto there. It has to be in the UI.
But retaining the high school as
Correct,
well.
correct. You have. And so the estimated savings projection, which was on a very conservative side. So the first year was approximately $120,000. The next year, it dropped down to in the 80,000 range. And then the third year and beyond, it averages around 40,000. So there's significantly, it goes down and it levels out somewhere around that $40,000 a year savings. So it doesn't always stay at that $120,000 that is projected, but it is a conservative, it's based on our current usage on there and then discounted somewhat as a conservative rate. But of course, it's a 25-year lease. That's where they come up with the approximate savings to the town of approximately $1.2 million. But for the most part, it's about $40,000 a year.
And Mike, if I may add to Rose's point, which she actually did a great job in explaining it, the 40,000 is only for one project. We have two, right? So times two of all of these savings that we're talking about, because that's only on a 1 megawatt project. We're going to have a 2.2 megawatt project or a 2 megawatt AC project, more or less. So the savings are closer to the 90-ish that we're always talking about on a very conservative approach. The reason why it levels off and we're saying that it's going to stay, which is not real, right? After the third year, at that point that Rose is talking about, again, to her point, it's very conservative, is that because we're assuming UI rates are never going to go up. We know they're going to go up, more or
So
less.
if they go up, we see.
Obviously there's a lot of dispute in town right now, not in the whole state, but it will levelize itself at some point, that discussion.
Thank you.
So the high school's not listed?
Oh, yeah, it's there. And the question was whether or not, because we're building new, in either case, we're gonna have a high school and it's gonna consume energy, so we kept it in. The police department is not in because it's going to move up the road into Wallingford Electric.
Right now, it's UI, but we know it's going to be moving to Wallingford Electric, so we didn't put it in. Because then we would have to make that up by adding other projects.
No, I just didn't see the high school in here. It says is this nine items, right? North Branford Intermediate
What
School.
page are you on?
That might have,
North Branford Intermediate School lights, Atwater Library, Fire Department, Company 1, tennis, 233 Branford Pump, 213 Twin Lakes Road, high school parking lights, and high school field service.
so do you have the high school listed?
Unless I'm reading it wrong.
If we don't, it should be listed. I thought I did, but if we made a mistake, it should be listed there.
Not on here.
We're gonna go over it right before the system gets turned on, but without the high school, we can't get there anyway, because,
Right.
hold on, let me just see. I'm pretty sure we did, but if we didn't,
It's not
you know,
listed
I
on
apologize,
page
we can change
25
it.
or 26.
Okay.
On one of the contracts, I have the high school on the first, on the second contract. The Jerome Harrison Elementary School Auditorium Town Hall High School, that's in the second contract. I divided them.
Okay.
And the first one has, go. The first one is the one that you guys are looking at, the gentleman, I don't know who, I can't really make out the voices, but that's the one that you read. And then there's a second contract for the second project because they're adjacent to each other. That one has the high school.
Okay. So do we have the second, they're both basically the same, it's just the properties that are different?
Right,
They're
so it
the same.
sounds like you
They
split
are
the,
same.
yeah.
We divide them into two for the benefit of the towns because we're limited for the number of accounts. But like you can see in North Branford, you have a lot of, like almost 20 accounts to make up for the whole thing. So in order to maximize your savings and in order to have the maximum amount of beneficial accounts, we have two contracts so that we can have more than 10, or in this case, a little bit more accounts. That's one of the reasons why we do. Otherwise, really, it's just a one single 2 megawatt project, more or less. why they limited to 5 accounts or 10 accounts in certain instances? Anybody's guess. That's how the rules were written, which makes no sense because all municipalities have tiny accounts like
Right, 'cause there's
street
two
lights
contracts,
or like
yeah.
the tennis court, like you said. Almost all towns that we work with struggle with this, so that's why we separated multiple contracts.
Okay.
All right, 'cause they're not listed on this one.
Did we have a motion?
It
Well,
would just be a s-
We were just asking, Mike wants to wait until after
Okay.
executive session
Okay.
because he has some questions on one of
Alright.
the executive session items.
Any other discussion?
I could not hear the lady clearly. What was the answer to your question, Tom, about the high school?
There's two contracts, they're identical, just the properties are different, and we're only looking at contract number 1. And the second one
So
has
the
Jerome
main
Harrison and.
Components of the high school are on contract too.
Yes.
Along with
Thank you.
Jerome Harrison, the
And the
town
town
hall,
hall.
there's some other
Auditorium.
properties on the other ones.
Yeah.
Right. And is the second contract identical to this contract but for the beneficial
But-
properties?
right.
Yes.
Anything else? Anybody have anything else? Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chilla.
Thank you. Should I sign off?
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're moving to C, so we're gonna move that,
Yep.
Vote on that?
no, we're gonna wait until, we're gonna go into executive session and then come out, and if we wanna vote,
Okay, well, there was a,
thank you.
I thought that we needed to, vote on the motion on Counselor Judy's motion to move.
I don't know that there was a second. I think we just decided that we were gonna discuss it and take action after executive session.
Review and approval of bid specification for bid number 5, 2020-2021, emergency generator services.
So is this just the generator at NBIS for the, or is it all generators?
All,
And how many are there?
there's 7 that listed on page, page 9 of the bid spec, Part E, town generator inventory list. 1 through 7 there, page 9.
Yep. I make a motion to approve the bid specs for bid number 5, 2020-21, emergency generator services.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay. Item D, award of bid number 3, new roof or limited roof repair for the North Branford North Branford Police Department.
Yeah, there's this memo in the packet with a recommendation for Shoreline, and I know that Commissioner Colombo is also here as part of that and assisted with that process. And if you read the second page, the group is recommending the award as a repair to the roof based on their conversation in the field about the strategy that this particular roofer was going to employ to address the guide wires and the tower that goes through by putting pitch boxes and so forth, and they were impressed and I think confident that this would be the best route to go. But ultimately, you are faced with the threshold question that you had a few meetings ago, which was, do you want to put a new roof on it, or do you want to go with a repair and patch? I think that the group, and I'll certainly defer to Commissioner Palumbo, but my sense is that the group, and my feeling as well, that there is concern about a new roof and the communications and the stability of the communications with a full-blown roof replacement. So I think that's why they came up with it's better to repair at this point, and with this company who sounds like a sound strategy to address that versus going with a new roof, because you can always, after 2 years and the police PD goes down the street, you take those things off if the council wants more time to decide the ultimate reuse of that building, or if you're going to even keep it, and then if you put and maybe the repair is fine and you don't need to, but you can address the roof at that point. So,
Dave, what's your input?
So, Franny and I went a couple times and up in the attic, inspected it, found about 7 locations on the roof that the plywood's delaminated, soft, spongy, and the question is, and I don't think anybody can answer that right now. Are we gonna demo this building in a couple of years, or are we gonna use this building for some other use, So without being able to answer that, if we were gonna keep this building, I would say, and Councilor Duty and I spoke a couple of weeks ago as well. My recommendation, if we were keeping the building, take the antenna off, put a concrete pad alongside the building. Franny's got 2 15-foot towers down at Public Works, put the antenna off the side, put a whole new roof on the building. If you're saving it. If we don't know we're gonna save this building, my recommendations, by looking at the spots up there and going up and inspecting it, would be to patch and it's probably several sheets of plywood, felt paper, shingle, and this guy will put new pitch boxes in every place that the roof was penetrated. Where the other guy, we didn't really get a warm and fuzzy feeling. He was just gonna replace, re-shingle, and hope for the best, in a sense. That was Southern Connecticut. I'm sure he would solve the problem, but with pitch boxes, where the roof's penetrated in all the locations, we have double insurance that we won't have any leakage. But if we were thinking that someday you may keep this building for another use, not a PD, then it may warrant, you wanna decide to put a roof on it. But in the meantime, we have to solve the problem at hand right now.
Right.
He is a little bit more money, one's 15 and change, one is 17 and change, so there is a little bit of a difference, but Shoreline's done probably 3 or 4 projects in town now. Franny's pretty comfortable with them. We had a pretty lengthy discussion with him at the PD and on the site about it,
So you're confident in the repair?
Yeah, I think that's the only way to go right now, unless you guys made a decision that you're gonna keep this building. I would go with a new roof, otherwise just repair it,
Okay.
That's really where we're at, so.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to award bid number 3, 2021 for a limited roof repair for the North Branford Police Department to Shoreline Restoration, limited roof repair at $17,800.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, discussion and action, 8-24 referral for NBPD.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward that it's, with the proposed, project involving a new town-owned property and relocation, it's gotta go. It's a requirement to send it off to P&Z.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that the North Branford Town Council hereby refers the NBPD building project for 305 Forest Road to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review as part of a Section 8-24 referral process.
Second.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Okay, item F, delinquent.
Clarification on D, is the funding source gonna be a future contingency appropriation for the PD roof? It wasn't discussed where the money's coming from.
How much do they have left over in their surplus?
Because I thought that was part,
Contingency.
I thought that was part of
Contingency.
using their,
We're gonna use our funds.
yeah, I thought that was part of using the 1920
Correct.
surplus.
Yes.
That was one of the items
Yes,
on there.
correct.
Do you want us to amend that motion?
Yeah, just to clarify where the money's coming from.
Okay. So, Michelle, we're gonna go back to item D, to that motion. And I'm just gonna amend it to read that funding will come from the surplus amount in the 1920 police department budget.
Okay, one source will be from the 1920 fiscal year surplus from the police department.
Correct.
Okay, we don't have to vote on that, right? We don't have to like re-vote on it, do we? Okay.
No.
Alright, F, delinquent real estate tax accounts.
I think we're gonna skip over that,
Okay.
and then come back after the
All right.
executive session.
G, contingency appropriation transfer, fiscal year 2020-21.
Jesse's been here all evening, waiting.
It's fine, I'm happy to be here. So we, as you know, approved the flooring project for the fitness room, due to cleanliness for COVID. When we removed the floor, which we couldn't have foreseen, the laminate, or the flooring is damaged. Because of the age of the building, it is potentially asbestos. All indications indicate that it is. It's over $1,000 to test it, or we can encapsulate it for $4,700, or you can have it tested, remediate it, which would be $10,500. I have the quotes available if you'd like, but the $4,700 that we're asking out of the contingency fund would allow us to move forward with the project. Our contractor can lay the laminate to encapsulate it, and then we can move forward with our project in order to get our fitness center reopened. So.
I'd like to make a motion that the town manager is hereby authorized to appropriate from reserve for contingency account 101-4703-760-0000 and transfer into the appropriate account as soon as possible for the following purpose: fitness room floor additional expense to encapsulate for $4,700.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain?
Appropriation transfers.
So moved as presented.
Second.
Okay, one second.
Any discussion? Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain?
Financial report as of August 31st.
Financial report, I put in your packet the forms that I referenced, that I think might be beneficial for you. I did go through and use the format that, that Ron had provided. Starting with the traditional document, Tax collections, again, just about on target with last, 52.6 compared to 52.8. Delinquent revenue is a little bit higher than last year. Overall revenue, 43.2% compared to 42.5, so revenue is something that we're doing on target with. Expense side of the house, you notice we're a little under budget compared to last year, 18.3% compared to 19.2% same time last year. So again, the report is unremarkable. To go to the sheet that Ron provided, the cover sheet basically looks at the entire shooting match, and it ties in, you notice, to the traditional report you have. The expenditures on page 2, 7,193,102. The encumbrance column, 2,797,797. The difference column, what I did is I took the budget, and then on the top 17%, so that's 2 months in, 2/12 ratio. So the year-to-date budget says, okay, for the mayor and council, total budget 78, 17%, they should have spent about 13,000. You can see that they're ahead of that. If you look at the right-hand column, almost every department is significantly, and what this shows you is that we do very few things in a linear fashion. We have things we either pay at the beginning of the fiscal year, things we pay at the end of the fiscal year. Nothing is 12 equal installments. You can say month by month by month, are you ahead of your budget where it's supposed to be? So I just caution you that this form, I'm not sure how valuable it's gonna be. And then the back sheets behind it are each department, each line item, where they are, budget, the differences, again, 212, 17%. And again, the sheets all flow from the back to the front. But you can pick any department you wanna pick, and you're gonna see that the numbers are skewed, because nothing is done in a linear 12 equal installment fashion. Things are kind of sporadic throughout the year. Doesn't mean they're ahead of budget or bad or good, it's just the way that things function. So I'll do this in September for the quarter, but my guess is, again, looking at this, you would have had to have 40 departments come before you and say, why are you plus or minus more than 5%? I think only one department, emergency management, 4250, is right at a 5% under budget. Everybody else is significantly over or under. So I'll do this September, and we'll see how it looks on a quarterly basis. But I just want to caution you that I think the numbers really aren't going to be much value to you, because nothing is done on a linear fashion.
But Anthony, what do you use as a gauge for this? Are you just comparing it to last year's budget? Are you using like a 3-year?
No, but all on this sheet.
I mean, because the stuff that we pay at the beginning of the year, we always pay at the beginning of the year and always have paid at the beginning of the year, correct?
And that doesn't, it's not going to show on here. It's going to show this huge budget variance because your year-to-date budget, you're saying basically so the next month, let's say 1 quarter. So 3/12 will be the ratio. Have we spent 3/12 of that budget by department? And that's all this sheet's gonna show you, but it really isn't an accurate picture because so many expenses are not spent in 12 equal installments where you say, okay, where are we compared to budget? Where are we? We're supposed to be, according to this sheet, we should be, again, looking at the mayor and council, you should have only spent 13,000 on the top line. That's 17% of your budget, 2 months in. Well, holy cow, you're 410% over budget, over where you should be if you use this kind of a format. So I rather look, and that's why I gave you the sheets that I use for my sheet. It's more important to me to say, okay, mayor and council, geez, look at that. You're 82% this year, you're 85% last year. You're actually doing better than last year. And with my sheets, you now have the individual account by account breakdown to show the budget, the expenditures, the encumbrances, remaining budget, and percent used. So if you want to look at it and say, okay, it's in the mayor and council on my sheet, you're 82% used, and that ties into here because you're significantly over where you're supposed to be if you use this time-stamped model.
What comes out of that account?
Mayor and council?
Yeah.
Well, if you turn to page 9, let's see, you got salaries is low, you got your professional development. You paid $16,000 out of a $20,000 budget, so what's that? That's your fee to CCM and Greater New Haven Transit. So again, if you look at that and say, holy cow, compared to where we're supposed to be based on 2 months in,
It's just right behind.
17%,
Here's the.
you know, we're way up.
Thank you.
So again, I can, you know, beat it to death, but my only point is that very few things we do are linear in fashion, where if you compare it to a percentage of the fiscal year and say, okay, if we're 3/12 in, we should be spending 3/12 of our budget, that's not the way we work. Things aren't done in increments. Look at Public Works. Look at he has a big jump up come winter time. So he may be showing under budget on some of his lines now. Come winter time, he's gonna be higher than budget. Conversely, now look, he's putting a lot of overtime in doing his storm cleanup. Some of it's going towards, FEMA accounts, but there's other expenses he's incurring. So that's my only point, is that very few things are linear in fashion. And this report, traditional report, says, okay, how are we doing this year compared to how we were doing last year? And that to me shows more of a red flag. If something is, significantly higher this year than last year, well, what's going on? How are we, how are we up percentages or down percentages in departments versus this report, which I don't think is gonna be helpful. Again, I'm gonna do it for the September quarter. I did it to compare the two reports to see the differences. And again, if you look at every department on there, all but one, they're significantly over where the percentage has them be.
Right. Over time, it could work, because you could end up budgeting differently and have a seasonal type budget, so you know that.
Yeah, but how do you do that? You've got your budgets based on the whole year.
Yeah.
In March, April, May, you're gonna see it come more into line and more balanced.
Yeah, you're right. As you get down to the end of the year, come next June, you're right, the 100% is gonna be expended, but from now till then, the numbers are gonna be skewed.
Yeah, you're gonna have that in any budget in the first, 4 months.
True.
But as you move down, and the thing that this council's looking at, or I'm looking at, is I'm looking at March, April, May, and June, and
Right.
seeing where we are
Right.
on every line item.
Right.
Well, yeah, because as we get this report and we get closer to budget season, because you give the backup here and we have the line items and where they are compared to the budget, I think it'll be more useful when we go into budget
Okay.
deliberations.
Yeah.
Right now, you're absolutely correct,
Sure.
because it's very skewed.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the way we run here,
Right.
you know.
And
But-
the other thing I wanna point out too is the numbers we were looking at previously for the Board of Ed, those numbers, the $2.some million.
Right.
That's all evaporated. Okay, they've given us a list of purchase orders, so we all thought we had this pie in the sky, $2.8 million, we overtaxed people. That's not true at all.
Right.
They're coming in very close to where zero.
Well,
Not
they
at
have-
zero, but close.
Well, they have the 643 in there, right?
Right.
Because they need to have that in order to get their 2%.
Correct.
Comes
We
out of
we
there.
haven't finalized the numbers. We're meeting tomorrow with the Board of Ed personnel to finalize everything, see where the differences are. But the 2-point-something million that everybody thought was concerned about, it's not there.
Well, it's there, but they spent it all.
There's a list
So,
of, as I
so
told
next,
you.
next year, when we look at their budget, they won't need as much.
Well, that's a whole different story.
Thanks, Anthony.
Thanks, Anthony.
Yeah.
Okay. Tax refund. Must be a motion there, right?
So moved.
Second.
There's a revised sheet, yeah.
It was in the,
Yeah.
It was
in
in
the
a
thing.
white sheet.
Yeah. I'll second Marie's motion.
Discussion. Michelle?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Okay. Citizen statements?
Yeah, I'm gonna say something.
I just wanted to, Bill
Oh.
had given me some stuff to pass out, so
Okay.
before we get into public comment, I
That's the boondocks over there.
Okay, Ron, first of all, I want to thank you for checking into what I was told when I bought my home, that nobody would be able to build on that property for 100 years. I want to know if I was lied to, number one. Secondly, one of my neighbors told me to tell you, if that tower gets put in, it's going to devaluate the value of all of our homes. Okay? We did not move into the country to have a cell tower put in our backyards. Okay? But I also have a problem with our town manager, Michael, because when I called him, and I was, as you all know, very upset about putting this tower in my backyard, he said, oh, no, you know, it's not cast in stone. Well, I don't see any other location on this itinerary except my backyard.
Because that's the only one that we vote on. If it goes on private property, we have no say on it. So this is the only thing that we would have any say on. So that's why it's
So all
before.
the other properties you have no say on?
Right. If they're
private.
private property, it could go in the center of Northford, and if it's private property, we have no say on it. It could still go there. It could go 100 feet, you know, or let's say 100 yards over, that's private property, it'd still be in your backyard, but if it's private
So
property.
if my neighbor wants to put a cell tower on their private property, they can?
It goes to the site council.
Right.
Yeah.
As long as it's planning and
As-
zoning.
as-
Yeah.
Well, no, it would go to, if it's not a municipal tower, it would be reviewed by the siting council
Okay.
under their regulations.
And so what, I mean, I pay taxes, okay, I paid for the entire year, and you're telling me I don't have any rights to say, no, I don't want this tower on this person's private property?
You have the ability to contest in accordance with the rules, but ultimately the decision maker would be the statutory body. And in that instance, if it went out to private property, it would be the Connecticut Siting Council.
And so what if I got a petition and had a lot of people sign it?
It would be the same thing. You could all wage your contest, and the decision would be the Connecticut Siting Council.
All right, 'cause-
That's the law. And, so, here, we're considering municipal property. If there's a decision not to proceed on municipal property, we do not know what the developers, may very well, I know there's a site, I think in Norfolk Center?
Yeah.
That other location? That is private
Where's
property.
the other location?
You have the address on that one?
Yeah, I'd like to know the other locations.
Again, my computer died, otherwise I would have,
Mike, is your computer up?
no, it's not, I have it here. If you send, leave me your email, I'm happy to send it to you.
Okay.
It is, I don't know it's a Clintonville Road, address.
Don't tell me Hart Houseman, please don't tell me that. I'll kill them.
I'll pay Artie to do it.
Yeah, if he wants to live, he won't. He worked for the phone company too.
Hey, he's a good guy.
Well, I guess that's all I have to say. I'm just distraught. I'm gonna get a petition going anyway. I'm gonna be prepared, because I am so upset. Marie, what's your, Diamond?
Yes.
She's the right one to contact for
Yeah,
Montgomery
you-
Village, because she's the
I'm
president of the
president
association.
association, so I'll give you my email address.
Thank you very much, because I wanna be kept informed about this,
Maria,
because
would
I
you-
have a lot of time now, Marie, I'm retired.
Okay.
And
well-
I could go to every North Branford resident and
Want
get a
me to- Want me
signature.
to simply copy you on my email?
Yeah, that would be good, then she'll
Sure.
have my email address.
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, yeah, there are.
Thank you.
There are two others contacted me about the tower as well. It's Charlene and Larry DeFrancesco of Montgomery Village, also against the tower, and a Mr. Edward Donadio, also against the town.
And there's people on Palaga Road that are upset about
Charlene
it
and
too.
Larry DeFrancesca.
Well, thank you for expressing your concern, because that's why we have this
Yeah.
on our agenda for people that have,
How does Eddie know it's like-
There's a person on Palaga Road that
Let's have a
told me to
speech.
tell you about appreciating
Oh, well,
our
there's, yeah, but
property.
she's
We
doing
didn't
better.
come out to a country to have radiation in the air.
Yep.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. This little informational thing I put out here, I know it's been a long night, I'll go through it real quick. It's just some of my thoughts and things that I've mentioned before, but I'm gonna mention again, I got them on paper, so we don't forget. Right off the bat is the emergency preparedness that I talked about a little bit last meeting. I'm very strong on 24 hours. If you're gonna open a cooling center or a warming center, have it open 24 hours, not limited hours. Can be in the emergency preparedness on the center or Stanley Williams. And please don't tell me there's not money in the budget. There's plenty of money, it's used elsewhere. And as far as I did go on the website, and there's a wealth of information on the emergency preparedness, but I don't think a lot of people would know how to get to it. So maybe Mr. Buck can put a little ad in the Talking Times every once in a while. Just remind them, especially with these weather events the way they are. Just use that to Talking Times. The POCD says that's the most information people get through town. So use it. Maybe get our CERT team together. Maybe he can work on that. Next item, boards and commissions. Over the winter, I see there was Regional Water Authority, Ethics, and Connecticut Transit agendas on the agenda side of the website. But they take minutes, but I see no minutes. They're not big agendas, and it's not a big deal. But if there's minutes, maybe it should be up there. The third one is recommission to public safety. I've said this one before. And communications commission. Now, that was probably intended, if you read the mission statement, it was probably intended for communications only, the communication we're talking about. But if we add welfare to it, I think maybe that could be, have to change the mission statement. But I think we're gonna use it. You know, a lot of the fallout from this COVID and the effect it's gonna have on families we haven't seen yet. You know, the money's run out for these people, foreclosures and stuff like that. Maybe Louisa's gonna need help in that social services officer. Commission could be a help. And we could probably use that same commission in reference to the blight whenever we get back to the blight ordinance. In reference to safety also, remembering from when Ron made his presentation, that's one of the platforms he ran on for public safety, so maybe Ron can work on it. Videotaping the town meetings, you know, starting this year in the budget, we contribute to the public access now, which we didn't before. And I'm not saying it for that purpose, but at least it's good for them. And I've been asking to videotape other meetings, fire, park and rec, police. I think it was important. One in particular could have prevented an issue, maybe a problem, or helped correct it. And the inlands and wetlands, I happened to tune into them only because they were on Zoom. And I'll tell you, and I'm not slighting any other commissioner or whatever, they got a hell of a team there. I mean, they really protect our inlands and wetlands. It was just nice to see that everybody was that concerned to make sure things are good in that respect. And also on that, this goes back a little bit to blight, and not blight so much as enforcing blight. There's an issue, and I'm not gonna say name, there's an issue that that commission's been dealing with for a year, starting a year ago this month. A person who hasn't conformed. And it's a shame that they have to deal with that for over a year, with all the other stuff they got to do. The state is involved with it, so it's not a frivolous thing. So there again, that commission could help that with blight and a situation to mediate that. Town managers reports. Mike does a good job on his town manager's report. Probably nobody sees them in the where they are on the website, because he hasn't been done a couple of them lately, but because of COVID probably. But again, going back to the Tucker Times, he could take the same items on there, or it doesn't even have to come from him. It could come from town hall. It could come from the clerk's office. A little message. Put it on in the Tucker Times, to the fire department, something. Something where the people will go there. Can't say front page because we don't seem to get the front page. There's a business in town that's monopolized the front page. So something that would be eye-catching, very simple. Then Cosgrove Animal Shelter. First week of August, you guys passed an agreement with Dan Cosgrove. There's a new agreement, I'm sure you remember. But the night before, in Branford, the Finance Committee approved, or they talked about this new agreement with North Branford, and that you would probably be signing it. So they were one day ahead of the game in reference to that. But they also brought up they want to renovate and add on to the new animal shelter. I made Mike aware of this at the time when it happened. Because it sounded like a bait and switch, meaning they offered you a little better deal with the 33% of the responsibility, I'll put it that way. I don't have other terms. But they want to build, and they want you to pay $1 million out of the $3 million. So I don't know if Mike has any information on that, but that's it for that. The other thing on the agenda packet, you know, the stuff that's on your computer. Well, the agenda itself says that the agenda's in the libraries and the town clerk's office, because as of this week, this building wasn't open, and of course there's limited hours in the library. So I would suggest that maybe Gina can put it on this, that it's available online and back of the agenda or something. So people don't have to go to the libraries if they want to read it. Maybe help. And the last thing is 9/11 Remembrance Ceremony. We don't have a ceremony for 9/11. I'm only throwing this out there. I mentioned it last night at the police commission meeting. I think we have something. Down the road, you're gonna have to remember what happened all these years. So let's start now. Not only, I don't know if anybody in town was directly affected with 9/11, but you had some of our volunteers that, it's on the monument at Company 1 there, went down for the cleanup, so those should be recognized as well. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I have one more question. If somebody puts it on their private property, do you tax them? So say they get $1,000 a month to have this thing put on their property, how much do you tax them? You tax them for it, because you tax for everything that we put on our property.
They get taxed on municipal property or private property.
So for the tower, they would be taxed.
If it's located on municipal property, it'd be personal property tax collected from the developer, annually.
Just say it's a homeowner.
It's same analysis. Same analysis.
I'll make a motion, we move into executive session, including the town manager, town attorney.
Second?
I got a new friend.
You got a soldier.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.